Good evening, everyone. Like all good Toastmasters, we would like to start on time. My name is Joe Ido, your Program Quality Director and host for tonight's Bridging the Gap Cultural Awareness Elective. I would like everyone to know that this session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our District 56 YouTube channel. First, let's go over a few rules and protocols. We would love for this to be an interactive session. Feel free to turn your video on, but mute your mic until you're ready to talk. Please keep in mind our Toastmaster core values: integrity, respect, service, and excellence throughout the meeting. Without further ado, let's introduce your instructor. Roxanne is an experienced Toastmaster, being involved with different clubs since 2007. In her tenure with Toastmaster, she has completed Advanced Communicator Gold and Advanced Leader Bronze. Currently, she is a member of the NOV Innovators, the President's Heights Toastmasters. She is also an area director for 011, and I'm lucky enough to have her on District 56 training team. She initially joined Toastmasters to practice slowing down her speech. Over the years, she has evolved with her to challenge her in different skills. She holds a bachelor's degree in international business with a minor in Spanish and a master's degree in management. Please help me welcome Roxanne.
Well, greetings, everyone. I'm so excited that everyone is on the line, and I hope that everybody can see my screen. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Fabulous. Now, I'm going to go through our agenda tonight, and we've got about an hour or so. Of course, if we have fabulous discussions, we might go a little bit over, but the plan is to keep us towards an hour. We'll talk about who I am, what qualifies me to even be talking about this subject. We'll talk about why cultural awareness is important, and then, of course, we'll have some exercises so that we can all participate in and get a feel for what it's like on the other side. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. As Joe mentioned, I've been with Toastmasters since 2007. Time sure does fly by when you're having fun. I just can't believe it's been that long. What's really interesting about Toastmasters is back in 2011, one of the members in my club at the time, I was in Baker Hughes Speakeasy, he came up to me, he said, Roxanne, you have a gift for presentation. I always enjoy listening to your presentations. They're a lot of fun, they're interesting, and you don't make it feel like a presentation. I just thought, wow, this is fabulous feedback. It turned out he was trying to recruit me for a position, and the position was in the function called CRM. So CRM is customer relationship management, and it's usually a tool used within a sales organization for how they manage their opportunities, how they get a hold of how they manage their accounts, and how they speak with their contacts. So my role would be to implement this software, but a big part of that was training people on it. And that's why he recruited me for the training aspect, which was perfect because I love to train. I like to be in front of people. With this particular role, what really appealed to me, other than the training, was I would get to go all over the world and meet different people and really experience the world. I had already been traveling for work, but not as extensively as I would be. I've got a picture on the screen of some of the places I've been. I've been to 5 continents, 20 countries, and 93 different cities. It looks a lot cooler on my phone, maybe because it's smaller than on the presentation. But going to all these different places, it really does bring an awareness of things are different outside the US. It's really a whole nother world. people ask me all the time about, oh my gosh, aren't you scared? You're going by yourself. So I will tell you, I've been to China and I had a situation there, took care of it. Recently, I was in Russia back in January. And instead of paying $50 for a cab ride, I paid $500 for a cab ride. But I look at it as I came home safe and I am okay. So there are things like that that do happen, but in most places, it's pretty safe. The other question I get all the time is, what is your favorite place? And I think that everywhere has something special about it. But one of the ones that really stands out in my mind is Egypt. Ever since I was little, I always wanted to go to Egypt. I was fascinated by the ancient Egyptians and the pharaohs and just all the information about them. So being able to go to Egypt, and I'm very, very fortunate, I kind of get to put my own schedule together. And when the countries came up of where I needed to go, Egypt was on the list. It was either Egypt or Algeria. I'm like, oh, I'm going to Egypt. There's no question there. And while I was in Egypt, it was a dream come true. Not only did I get to train and did I get to experience the world and business, but I did get to visit the pyramids. I got to go on the Nile. I got to taste the food. I even made a friend while I was there. And it was just a fantastic experience. So there's just a lot out there. So with all those different experiences, I've learned some things along the way. And on top of that, because I've been in the oil and gas industry since 2004, oil and gas, it's a global industry. And so I work with people every day and literally sometimes all day, every day because of that. For example, last week I was doing a training session at 9 o'clock at night so that I can teach the folks that are over in the Asia Pac area. So there's a little bit of India, there's a little bit of Australia, etc. So I have to be aware of their time as well as my time as well. Okay, let's talk about what's in it for me. Why is this important? Well, let's start first of all with the miscommunications that happen. So the reason that we have some miscommunications is because sometimes we assume that people are similar to us. We think, oh, everybody's just like the Texans or just like Houston or the US. Now, I'll tell you, I'm guilty of all of this. And again, learning experience. A few years ago, I was in the UK. I was at work in London and I was very fortunate. My husband got to go along with me. I pick up a lot of miles and sometimes he travels with me. And it happened to be on one of our anniversaries, our wedding anniversary. So he tagged along and I was excited because not only were we in London, but also it was during the Halloween weekend. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to get to experience Halloween in a whole other country. This will be so much fun. I packed a couple of different outfits and just ready to be out on the town for Halloween because I thought, oh, it's again Halloween. Everybody celebrates Halloween. Well, apparently in the UK, Halloween's not a big deal. Yes, they have it. And yes, some people dress up in costumes, but it's a very small minority. So here I was with my little masquerade mask on, walking around the streets and thought, oh my gosh, I look like an idiot. I took it off because I assumed that they were just like us because they are so much like us in so many other ways. There's the language difference. Now, when I say language difference, I'm not just talking about I might speak English or Spanish or German or just different language in general. I mean, even if we're both speaking English, we could have different words for the same thing and not realize it. So we'll be talking the same language and not being able to talk to each other. For example, I was in Canada and as I was checking into the hotel, and this was my very first experience going abroad by myself. So I didn't know anything, and I'm checking in, and I said, "Oh, can you tell me, point me to where the ladies' room is?" And they just kind of looked at me, and I said, "The bathroom." They looked at me again. I said, "The restroom." They're still looking at me. And I just couldn't figure out how do I ask where the bathroom was because although I was checking in, my room wasn't going to be ready for a little bit. So I needed to use the facilities. And I don't know how I eventually got to describing to what I needed. And they said, "Oh, you mean the washroom." The washroom? Are you kidding me? why would we be using the washroom? So here we were, both speaking English, but their word for the facilities was washroom, and I thought it was restroom and bathroom and ladies' rooms and all these different things. I've since learned that the loo is also the bathroom because I had a similar experience with somebody else who was trying to ask me the same question. Important words to learn when you're traveling. And the other thing that leads to miscommunication is stereotypes. Now, when we talk about stereotypes, most people think about stereotyping people, but you can also stereotype things as well. So, one of the things that always came into my head in term, not a stereotype, I guess it is a stereotype because that's the example I'm going to use. When I think of Chinese food, what comes to mind? Fried rice and egg rolls. That's the immediate thing I think of Chinese food. So when I went to China, I was so excited. I'm going to have some real fried rice and real egg rolls. To my shock and astonishment, there are no egg rolls in China. None, nowhere. Egg rolls are not a thing in China. We made it up in the US. I had no idea. Now, I will tell you, the fried rice in China is absolutely delicious. It was so delicious that I have a completely different opinion about the fried rice, even gourmet fried rice back here in the States, because it's almost like frozen food compared to the real stuff in China. But I was guilty of stereotyping. I thought that there was egg rolls in China. There is not. So all of these different things will lead to the miscommunication. So if we don't want to miscommunicate, we want to learn some of the awareness. Here are some of the benefits so that we can have those conversations or what it means when you have it. First of all, it's going to help you develop your interpersonal skills. Now, when you are thinking about different countries, for me, for example, because I'm in a global industry and I work with a lot of folks, what it's taught me is that there's some countries where they're very specific and to the point, and let's get the question answered, and that's what it is. But then there's some countries that you don't start with the question. They want to know, how is your day? What's going on in your week? And they want to have and build this relationship with you. And so I have learned to figure out which parts of the world that involves and how do I respond to that. So that does impact my interpersonal skills and how I relate to people. It also helps me with my listening skills because when I'm listening to people from different cultures, other cultures, sometimes when they're speaking and English is their second language, sometimes it's very fast or sometimes it's very broken. So I really need to listen into what they're saying. And that helps me become a better listener. It was actually very sweet. I got a call from somebody in Argentina last week who he specifically called me. He said, Roxanne, today's my last day at the company, and I wanted to call and tell you thank you so much for just listening to me. I was like, what? Okay. I mean, it just kind of caught me off guard. Well, because he was from Argentina, he was really trying to practice his English. And I was the only person in the States that he talked to on a somewhat regular basis. And because I was patient with him and took the time, and I also understood what he was trying to say because I understand Spanish, it was easier for me. And so I really do appreciate that. And I just wanted to take the time to say thank you for that. Oh my gosh, it made my entire day that he said that. And I also want to attribute some of that to Toastmasters because it helps me listen to people, right? When we're doing evaluation. So all of that, it just kind of rolls into one. And then the other thing with the benefits of learning cultural awareness, it's a way for you to find common ground with other groups. For example, most of the world loves soccer. Does the US love soccer as much as we like football? We love football. Nowhere else in the world is football the way it is. But I have learned when I go to other places, soccer is a really big deal. And I completely understand when there's a soccer tournament. I've also learned that in the Middle East, for example, their work week is Sunday through Thursday. And because I know that their work week is Sunday through Thursday and they're also in a different time zone, I typically don't send emails to folks after a certain time period, because I don't want them checking their emails. I know I do that all the time, and I'm trying to help with them with work-life balance. So I tend not to say anything so they're not responding to me. In turn, what they do is they don't send me emails on Sunday, so my phone's not pinging off the roof. And in addition, when we set up meetings, we tend to do them around 7 o'clock in the morning, because that seems to be a good time where it's not too early for me and it's not too late for them. So we're really finding that common ground. And all this just has to do with that cultural awareness of knowing what's good for them, what's good for me, how can we work and we build on this together. Okay, so we've talked about the miscommunications, what could happen, or why does it happen, and also what are the benefits of learning cultural awareness. Is there so far any thoughts, concerns, comments? Okay, I don't see
I had a
anything.
question. This
Yes.
is Christina. I was wondering if the word Lou came from that song Waterloo from, whenever, what's his name? Whenever so-and-so met his Waterloo. And I was thinking, Lou, oh, maybe that's what they meant because, Napoleon really screwed up. I don't know.
Probably, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know. I want to guess that no, but it could be. I see Becky raising her hand. Yes, ma'am.
I'm kind of pleased that she interjected. You can get that same type of being lost in the States. You don't have to go overseas. When I moved from Colorado to New Hampshire when I was in my teens, I went to the teacher and I said, "Can I go to the lavatory?" And she said, "Well, why do you want to go to the laboratory?" And I said, "I don't want to go to the laboratory. I want to go to the lavatory." And we had this big discussion because she didn't know what a lavatory was. And I said, "I got to go pee." And she said, "Oh, you want to go to the basement?" "No, I want to go to the lavatory." "No, you want to go to the basement." So I went to the basement, what I knew as the basement, which is down under. And I'm wandering around. The janitor finds me and he said, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "I'm looking for the lavatory." And he goes, "Oh, that's on the 4th floor." So I went up 4 floors and it was just one hall with just classrooms. I was lucky I didn't have an accident on myself because I don't know how I finally found the bathroom, but I did finally find the bathroom. So you don't have to go very far. Then I moved from New Hampshire to Louisiana. So language barriers can happen very close at home.
Absolutely. And I've definitely experienced that, especially when it comes to words like soda, pop, and Coke. I'm sorry, I'm from Texas. Everything's a Coke to me, unless it's Dr. Pepper. Then it's Dr. Pepper. But I completely understand. I saw Pinky with your hand raised.
Yes, I had a question or something that I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on. A lot of the cultural differences you're speaking about verbiage, and I know that there's a lot of cultural differences across the planet when it comes to gender. Women in certain countries are in a different status than males are. And how then do you address or approach that and still be yourself? Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely a great question. Now, I can tell you just from experience, because I don't have the specific research, and I'm sure I've read a book on it. I've got tons of books, and diversity is one of the topics I tend to read on. But from my own experience, especially in countries like the Middle East, I'm very aware that it is male dominated culture, and there's some countries where you have to be escorted by a male. For example, that's the situation in Saudi Arabia, and I've been asked to go there and I kind of avoided going in that direction. And so I'm ready to deal with that, because I am a very independent and very lone type of traveler. What I found is when I'm going to a country, especially one that I don't know, I tend to do a little research ahead of time to make sure that I understand exactly that, the gender differences, and making sure that I'm not standing out in the wrong way. So for example, when I'm in the Middle East, I make sure that I'm always reserved in my dressing, which I'm always reserved in my dressing, but especially in the Middle East. I'm typically wearing pants or something that just covers me up in most places. And I'm typically not out at night by myself. I'm usually with the group. If I'm going out to dinner or whatnot, I'm usually out with folks. If I'm sightseeing, it's during the day, and it's usually with a tour group. I was in Malaysia, and I was very surprised because in Malaysia, they had their train system, and they had specific cars that were for women only. And then there were some that were for male only, and then there were some that were mixed, and I'd never seen that before. And I'm so glad that I saw the sign, because it was pink and it had a woman with a dress on it. And at first I was a little bit offended about, do I really want to get in this car? How bad do I want to see this attraction? But you know what? When I got into it and was on the journey, I actually felt really safe because I was around a lot of different women. So I would just say it depends on the country that you're going to, and just making sure you know ahead of time of what's respectful and what's not. I mean, I have gone to places and I've seen, for example, in the Middle East, I have seen women in short shorts. I'm like, are you kidding me? One, I feel embarrassed for them, but two, that's just being disrespectful of the culture. And I would not do that. So I would just take care of yourself. I would look at it more not as a gender difference. It's more about how do you fit in so that you don't stand out. Does that make sense? I don't know if it did or didn't. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Well, let's get into some of the fun stuff, because this does take a little bit of time. We're going to do some exercises, and I've got 3 prepared. And because we have a small group, I think this is going to be more fun done as a group all together instead of doing smaller groups. So this exercise.
Excuse me, Roxanne.
Yes, ma'am.
For some reason, you see my name, Barbara Walker, right?
I do.
But my husband's picture is on it, and I would have to log on and see if my cameras, for some reason, this camera is not working on the laptop.
That's okay. I can hear you.
But you see Barbara Walker, and that's my husband's Lee Walker, and that's his face. And my camera is really not working. There's a camera on this laptop, but it's not working for some reason.
Okay, I think as long as you can see the screen of the presentation and you can hear us and we can hear you, then we're okay.
Now, will the officers get credit? Would I get credit for this or what? Do we get, is this training which the officers get credit for or what?
I'm gonna I'll pass that as a Joe question. I see Joe shaking her head.
No.
No, this is not for credit.
Okay, it's all right then. I'll listen, and it's fine.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so for this exercise, again, because we have a small group, I'm going to ask somebody to be a brave volunteer with me. I know, scary. What am I going to ask you? Oh, look at that. Pinky just immediately has the hand raised. Pinky is my brave volunteer for this one. So this is walking a mile in their shoes, or the goal of this exercise is to feel what it's like for somebody who doesn't speak English. Have you ever noticed that when you're talking to someone who doesn't speak English, or it's not their native language, they have a lot of filler words. 2, they're slow. 3, you can tell that they're not as confident with themselves. Do you all tend to notice that when you're speaking to non-native speakers? And sometimes, because we are native speakers, sometimes we might get frustrated, or we might get, oh, just get to the point. But it's really difficult. And I know I feel this because when I'm in Latin American countries, for example, I sometimes speak Spanish. I really, really try to avoid it. And I'm very fortunate that I can find ways to avoid it, because I know that when I'm speaking Spanish, I sound like a Texan speaking Spanish. And I know that it's broken and it doesn't sound great, and et cetera, and et cetera. So for me, because I know how I feel, that's why I tend to be more patient with people when they're speaking to me. But the purpose of this exercise is just how to show you what it's like being on that other side. So Pinky, my brave volunteer, if you will unmute, there you go. If you would, please just tell us, and I for at least like a minute or so, and I'll cut you off in just a moment. Just tell me about where you grew up. Tell me about the town you grew up. What was it like? What did you like? Or what was it like? What did you like? How did you like? Anything you want to tell us about where you grew up?
Okay. Thank you for walking this mile with me through my journey of where I grew up. I grew up in a land far, far away. The land was called Chicago, Illinois. Now, I was born in Chicago and raised in a northern suburb about an hour north of Chicago in a town called Buffalo Grove. Although there were no buffaloes in Buffalo Grove. So I don't know how it got its name, but I do know how the high school of Buffalo Grove got its name, because when I was in 6th grade, they passed out a survey to the 6th graders, allowing us to name the very first Buffalo Grove High School and to pick out their colors. To this day, I'm disappointed that that all happened early in the 70s, because back then, brown and orange were hot colors. And I am so sad that those people today have to live with that color as their high school color. Now, in Illinois.
Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you. You didn't know you were going to do table topics tonight, did you? That was fabulous. I love it. Okay, are you ready for the challenge? Okay, I want you to answer the same question. Okay, so just telling us about where you grew up. You can even tell the same story if you want to, but you're going to answer the same question, and every seventh word, I want you to say a color, and it needs to be a different color every time. Green, purple, orange, yellow, whatever. Just every 7 words, throw in a color and a different color every time. But as you go along, it could be purple, then green, then purple again, whatever. But that will be your challenge. Every 7 words, answering the same questions with a different color.
So I'm just to repeat the story
You
with the
can
color in it,
you can
interjected.
that.
Pardon?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay. So, okay, mark off the start. As we walk a mile down this journey, I want to tell you where I grew up. It was a pink country far, far away in a land called Chicago, Illinois. I grew up in a blue town called Buffalo Grove. Now, one of the things I could do as a 6th grader was to give the color brown to my new high school, along with the color orange, as their color of the day. Yeah, this is hard.
There you go. You can stop.
I'm trying to count 5 and think of a color.
You are absolutely fine. You can stop. Okay, you just said this is hard. Tell me how you feel. Let's talk about the first response that you had. How did that feel, you telling us about growing up in the first round?
The first round was very natural, and I didn't have to think too much about it.
Okay, and tell us what was different about the second round. How did you feel? And what did you notice about yourself?
The second round, I had multiple things going on in my head. I was trying to figure out which word was the 5th word. I was trying to interject the same story, so I had to remember what I had just said. And then of course the colors, which I was trying to match up with, you know, like blue with buffalo. And so I was, yeah, that was complicated.
It was complicated. How did you feel along the way?
How did I feel? Well, I felt okay, but I did feel a little confused in trying to remember and add and remember and add and count and add. So it was a little bit, to me, it felt a little bit challenging. I had to really listen to the voice in my head, and I also had to watch your body languages on the screen to see if I was like actually making the point.
Thank you so much. Can we do a round of applause for Pinky and being the brave soul for me? So again, the purpose of this exercise was to show what it's like for somebody who's a non-native speaker as they're trying to communicate. I'm going to not pick on you, but I'm going to point out a couple of things that I noticed along the way. As she started the second round, did you notice that she paused at the very beginning? She had to think about what she wanted to say. So it took her just a few moments before she started on her response. And then also as she went along, she would look up, she'd look to the side. She's trying to think of that next word that she wants to say. So there is a time issue where you're trying to think of everything. You're trying to, in terms of the language, you're trying to translate. And then you're also trying to make sure, are you using the right word when you translate? So there's definitely a lot going on. And she mentioned she's looking at the video to see, does it make sense? So people, when they're communicating, they're doing that, whether that's in person or in video, they want to make sure that they're being understood and they're saying the right things. So definitely it is a challenge when you're trying to speak in a different language. And that's why it can be just slower and you'll have more of those filler words. And any thoughts, questions, concerns about this exercise? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to exercise number 2. Okay, for this exercise, we're going to talk about different proverbs or different sayings in different parts of the world. So in the different parts of the world, as I pull up each proverb, we're going to look at what do you think the message is trying to be communicated? What value do you think this is supporting? And what country do you think this might be from? Okay, so the first one is, we need to play hardball. Which country do you think uses that? What does it mean? And what value do you think that that's trying to communicate? Becky.
Well, I think that's from the United States. And the hardball is a form of baseball. Because you can play hardball, which would be baseball, or softball, which is a different kind of ball. And it means to play intensely, to play, to reach up for higher levels. To play hardball is to play to win.
Play to win. Nice. And anybody else with their thoughts on this?
Cricket.
Cricket?
It's got a hard ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
I kind of
go ahead.
thought, I think I've heard one of these commentators on CNN, there's a hard ball. So I didn't think of a round ball. I just thought about those tough conversations that you might have to have.
Absolutely. I would say all of that is, I would agree with. I see Charla. I don't know if Charla is clapping or if her hand is raised.
That was a clap.
Oh, yay. There we go.
With all the terms. Yay.
Absolutely. It can be either one, right? And I think it depends on the context that you're using. Teresa, unmute.
Okay, so I was thinking Mexico, because I know a lot of Mexico folks here in Houston, especially like at Bear Creek Park. I used to watch Hispanics play a lot of soccer in the fields out there. So that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on this particular one? Okay, now I will say that with these different proverbs that I bring up, they might be said in different parts of the world and they might mean different things. So the examples that I use are just what I happened to find as I was putting this course together and how to explain it. For this particular example, typically we hear it most with the United States. And when we need to play hardball, it could be absolutely play to win. And also having those hard discussions. It's how do we, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, I'm teaching the course, I can't even think of it. Okay, the values. Let's think about the values. If we're putting the values to this, what do Americans value when it comes to work ethic? Or how are Americans described when it comes to work ethic?
Are you talking about here in America towards Americans, not from other countries?
I would say from Americans. What do we value about work, or what is our tendencies toward work?
I think that when people use this term, play hardball, they'll do anything they have to do to get what they want. It's ruthless. I don't see it as a virtuous behavior that they're doing. When they're playing hardball, it can be cutthroat. It can be pretty mean.
Okay, and I love the route that you're going. So one of the things, and many studies have been done about this, is that Americans—
I mean the corporate ladder.
Yes, Americans work a lot. We're workaholics. There's lots and lots of people who don't even use all their vacation time when they only have 2 weeks allotted to them. Now, for me, I was super excited with 3 weeks. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with 3 weeks of vacation time? I just didn't know what to do with myself. But that's just how we are as a country. We value work. We go to work. We're typically always online one way or another. And us needing to play hardball, absolutely. Typically, it means that it's ruthless. It's being negotiations. It's what you have to do to win. So it's very much I like the word cutthroat. That was fun. But all of that goes into us working and getting up that ladder, as Pinky mentioned. Let's try a different one. The nail that sticks up feels the hammer first. The nail that sticks up feels the hammer first. What do you think this means? Who do you think is saying this? Or where do you think it's used?
That sounds like it would come from a country where individuals are encouraged to conform, not necessarily being unique, not sticking out. Because when you stick out, you're targeted. And when you're targeted, the hammer is going to hit you first.
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you, Christina. Any other thoughts?
Those that are different get criticized because they stick out of the crowd. So they might draw more attention to themselves. They don't fit the norm of what you think the norm is. So they're kind of more, they're kind of the ones you point the finger at more and say, look at them.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments? Yes.
It kind of says to me that we are, if we're looking at an organization, either you do what we, or a mean boss or somebody. If you don't do what I say do, you're gone. If you have to conform, because if not, the hammer is coming down on you and it's not going to be nice.
Mm-hmm. I saw Becky's hand up. Becky?
I kind of looked at it from the other direction. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. The nail that sticks up feels the hammer first. Yeah, you're going to feel it, but if you're not willing to stick out, then you're not different.
So many different perspectives. What country do you think that this is from?
I would say the Middle or Far East.
Middle or Far East. Anybody else?
I think
America.
It could very well be here in the United States.
Anyone else?
That sounds like, I don't know either. Is it okay if I say a country or should I just stick to a continent?
Up to you.
That sounds something like my friend Tri Hong would say from Vietnam.
Interesting. Okay, now the research that I found, this was pulled from Proverbs in Japan. Now, I would say that potentially it might be used in the Asia Pacific area, so maybe in Vietnam, I don't know, but specifically in Japan that this is used. And what it means is that deviance is met with resistance. So if you're sticking out, you're going to get hit hard with it. You're going to feel that resistance. And I think, Christina, it was also you who mentioned the conformity, right? In Japan, there tends to be a lot of that hierarchy, that culture where there's a hierarchy and you want to fit with and conform within it. Okay, let's do the last one. No flies get into a closed mouth. No flies get into a closed mouth. What do you think this means?
I know what that means.
Go ahead, Becky.
It means don't gossip. Keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut.
And
No, but I see you agreeing.
I think that would probably come from Africa. It makes me think of the African fables.
Okay. Anybody else?
This is Christina. I guess the first thing I thought of was the mama frog telling the little baby frog, if you keep your mouth closed, you ain't going to get dinner. But I know that that's not what that is. I just had this visual of a cute little frog. Wasn't listening to his mom to catch the flies.
Oh, Christina, you're just so, I think you have such an open mind and creative, and I love it. And it's so funny that you say, I don't think that this is right, but you know what? There is a country where that's exactly what it means.
No way.
Wait, is that Pinky? Is that your hand up? I think I see it.
Yes,
No?
I don't know
Go
why
ahead.
she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. There was a story about that. But I think it's probably a proverb of some kind that means about gossiping and talking about people and that, yeah.
That's what the first thing that came into my head too when I first read this was don't be gossiping. Okay, so let me validate Christina. Yes, you are right. There is a country that it is exactly that no flies get into a closed mouth. In Italy, for them, this means that be alert to opportunities. So if your mouth is closed, then you're not going to get dinner. Therefore, you're not going to get the opportunities. So that's in Italy where you are spot on, Christina. Yay!
This is unbelievable.
That is the open mind. I love it. Now, the other countries that I found this for is in Mexico and Brazil. What it means is sometimes it's better to be quiet. It's better to be quiet so that you're not basically the no gossiping. But also, if we think about countries like Mexico and Brazil, there's a lot of violence and there's a lot of gangs and those type of things. There's a lot of drug trafficking. So if you see something, it might be better for you not to open that mouth because it might be a bad thing for you. So that's why they use this particular proverb. Okay, any questions, comments, concerns about Proverbs? See, different, no flies gets into a closed mouth. That particular one, as I mentioned before, I found it in, was it 3 different countries, Mexico and Brazil, it meant one thing. And on the other side of the pond in Italy, it meant something completely different. So it really just depends on the context on how you're using it and the country that you're at, or I would say the continent that you're at, to what it means. Okay, let's go to the last exercise. What about etiquette? What are the do's and don'ts? This is a big thing when it comes to just that cultural awareness. I think that over the years, I have finally got into my head, because I do a lot of training sessions in person at work, with training comes, you got to order food, and it's usually breakfast, lunch, and snacks and all of that. I have to be very aware about what I'm ordering. I have to make sure that there's not any bacon, which bacon's a staple in the United States, but I have to have different options because it's a global company. And I know that other people are coming in and they can't eat bacon. So different things like that I have to be aware of when it comes to training and just ordering food. So let's talk about etiquette in general. What do you think? Arriving late to a meeting with no explanation. Would you say that this is rude? What do we think about it in the United States? Do we think that, that's a rude action, or do we think that that's okay?
In most places in America, it's rude unless you are in the deaf community. In the deaf community, arriving late and staying really long is appropriate.
See, we say that we learn something new every day. That's my something new that I learned today. Thank you, Pinky, for that. Any other comments? Would you all agree that in the US, we think it's pretty rude to show up late without an explanation? I will tell you, I'm pretty punctual myself, especially when it comes to trainings or meetings. When it comes to meetings, I'm usually 30 minutes ahead of time because I always want to get the best seat in the house if I'm in person. Or if I'm online, I want to make sure that my equipment is working okay. Or if I'm one of the presenters, I want to make sure that everybody can see me and can hear me. Or if anybody has any questions, I can answer those questions. So for me, it's absolutely rude when somebody arrives late to me with no explanations. But in some places, this is perfectly natural. Where do you think might be some places, or what is something that you've experienced where this was not rude?
France.
Do you have an example, or you just, France, it's okay?
I'm saying France is okay.
It's
Only
okay.
because they have like such leisure lunches and things like that. So I was assuming France.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would say some of the places I would consider where arriving late with no explanation is a good thing would be if you're going to a seminar or the class and you don't want to disrupt what is going on.
I would agree with that. Okay, arriving late to a meeting. Where do you think that this might be okay? Where in the world might this be okay? Where it's arriving late, no big deal.
How about if you're the king or the queen and they're doing a party in your honor? You're always fashionably late.
I have yet to hear that one, but okay, I will go with it.
Hawaii
Hawaii
is another one that comes to mind because when we were traveling there and I asked them how long it took us to get to the luau, they said 10 minutes. And after half an hour, I asked again and they said, hang loose, 10 minutes Hawaii time. No big deal.
She is so right.
Is it Hawaii time or is it island time in general? I know some of the places I've gone in the Caribbean or even in Key West, it's a whole different mentality. Things just go at a much slower, relaxed pace so you can enjoy life. Now, what do you all think about Latin America? Do you think it's okay to be late? Latin America in general. So Latin America, Mexico, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina. So in those countries,
I'd say yes.
It is okay to be late, and it's actually kind of expected. Now, I've heard of Latin time. I had never really experienced Latin time until earlier this year when I was training in Mexico. I went to my training, and again, I'm there early because I'm prepping and getting my room set up and just in general getting ready for the training. My trainings typically start at 9 o'clock a.m. and they usually go until about 3, and I have it all scheduled out when we're going to take breaks, when we're going to do lunch, etc. And I know about what section of my training I will be at what time. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and nobody shows up. It's 9:30. I'm still waiting. Finally, someone strolls in and then he's like, oh yeah, we don't really start till 10:30. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm having my first break by 10 or 10:30. It completely threw off my entire schedule. I had no idea because I thought for sure this was a meeting. It was a training. Therefore, we start at 9 o'clock. I mean, if I'm doing a conference call, we start at 9 o'clock. But no, I was in Mexico, and in Mexico, they start around 10:30. Lunch will be about an hour and a half long. And so it was definitely, I had to be a lot more flexible with my idea of time. I think, and I'm not sure, my sister-in-law is from Venezuela, and she used to tell me, oh my gosh, the traffic is so bad in Venezuela, you have no idea. And I experienced it one time because we visited Venezuela for the wedding, and the traffic was just car after car after car. It was just, I've never seen anything like that. And there's so much traffic going from city to city that they have the street vendors and they're selling fruit and they're selling drinks because you're in your car for so long. And she would say, boy, we start whenever we start because traffic is so bad that we don't know what time we're going to get to the office. We try to get there at 8, but a lot of times it's not there till 9:30, or sometimes it is 10. She's like, if I get there at 10, don't even talk to me. I'm in the worst mood because I've been in the car for too long. So traffic is definitely an issue in some of these countries. Let's go to the next one. Getting a to-go bag. What do we think in the US? How many of you got a to-go bag the last time you went out to eat? I did. So probably we think that this is okay, getting a to-go bag. Where do you think getting a to-go bag is actually pretty rude?
China.
China? Okay, where else?
That's what I would say is somewhere in the Orient, anywhere in the Orient.
What makes you think the Orient?
Because I would think one of the things I used to hear when we went into a Chinese restaurant was when someone would belch, that meant that they enjoyed the food. And therefore, I got the impression that they wanted you to finish everything off, and they do fill the plates up. So anywhere, probably like someone else just said as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Any other comments? Tammy.
Well, I know this is not the right answer. I said before Mexico, because I went there and their buffets, that was my first time where you order from a menu at a buffet. And then they bring it to you on these plates like samples. We were thinking, the people I went to Coastamere with, and we went to this place that was a buffet. And we were looking at the menu and we were going like, oh, wow, we want this, 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 and this. And so we ordered it and they brought it back to us on these little bitty plates that look like samples. And so we had to, when we wanted more, we had to ask for more and they would bring it to us on these little plates like samples. So I always thought maybe it was Mexico, but I know it's not Mexico.
Tammy participated in my dry run, so she knows all the answers that I have for tonight. The research that I found for this particular one, where getting a to-go bag is going to be rude, would be in places like France and Italy. Now, when I thought about that and put the connection together, when I think of France and Italy, I immediately think of food, and delicious food at that. I can verify for Italy, they have delicious food. It was just there last year. And so in France and Italy, they feel that you should enjoy the full meal there, and it's actually going to take away from the meal by you taking it in to go. So it's very rude for them. We see Barbara. Hey, Barbara, your video's on. Yay! No audio, but that's okay. I see you. And then you all had an interesting point about the Orient. So I'm going to have to look into that because I haven't heard that before, but it would absolutely make sense. It sounds very similar. It's going to be one of the next ones that we look at. Barbara, I hear you now.
Yes, good.
Yay, we see it.
After work, it took around 10 minutes to get it.
Persistence.
Not only that, but in a lot of the Asian countries, they don't have refrigerators. So to take something home would be, you know,
It'd be a
wouldn't
way.
be appropriate anyways, because they always go to the market fresh every day. I went there and was there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, the only place I've been in the Asia region was Beijing and Kuala Lumpur. And I was very fortunate, and I was in fancy hotels. Now, I thought that these were super fancy hotels because they were absolutely beautiful. It turned out it was their Holiday Inns, but they weren't gorgeous, gorgeous. That's the beauty of when you travel for the company, all expenses paid. Chewing gum. Chewing gum, where do you think that this might be a bad thing?
At church. No.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. My mom would never forgive me if I chewed gum at church.
Everywhere.
I couldn't resist that.
No, I love it. That's absolutely right.
My husband said in sales, he was in sales and he went to visit dentist, and one of the dentists called up his boss and told him he would never buy anything from him ever because he came chewing gum and to try to sell products to him. So from then on to this very day, he will not chew gum.
I know, for me, when I think of chewing gum, I think of the smacking. But then also for me personally, the last 2 times I've chewed gum or used to chew gum on a regular basis, I've actually lost fillings. No more gum for me. I can't afford to go get more fillings. I will tell you, there is actually a country where chewing gum, not only is it poor etiquette, but you can actually go to jail for it.
Singapore.
Yes,
Singapore.
Singapore. You can go to jail for chewing gum in Singapore. So don't pack it in your, if you're going over there, don't pack it in your bag because you get a fine or you go to jail. Now, I found out that why they did this. The reason that it's a law that you can't do it is because, one, there's a lot of litter, and so it helped with the litter situation. But 2, they found that vandals, they would put gum on the doors of the trains, and it was causing issues with that. And so that's why they stopped with allowing gum chewing in Singapore.
I thought that was outlawed also in a Middle Eastern country, and the complaint was that the individuals that were riding on the buses or the trains were continually taking the gum and sticking it underneath the seats, and the cleaners were tired of doing it. So now it's illegal to chew gum, and they were also spitting it on the sidewalk, and it's considered really rude to spit on the sidewalk anyway. But I don't remember which country it is. Maybe I'm getting confused with Singapore.
Possibly. And you know what? It's funny because I had spitting on the sidewalk on here and I took it off, and I don't remember which country it was. It's probably why I took it off. I personally don't know where. When I've gone to the Middle East, I've seen gum at the store, so I think it's okay there. I was just in shock when I saw that it was actually outlawed in a country. I've just got 2 more. I see that we've got 2 minutes left till 8 o'clock. What about avoiding eye contact? What do you think that might be rude?
I'm sure it's either Japan or China where they keep their heads, I believe it's China maybe, where they keep their heads tilted. So it's considered disrespectful to look at one another in the eye.
Mm-hmm. Pinky? Pinky, I saw you go off mute. No?
It could be Vietnam too.
Japan and some of the Arabian countries.
Yeah, definitely those Asian countries for sure. The other one that I would know is tribes, as in American tribes. Now, I tell you, I've been on a tribal reservation, and what was really interesting, going back to the gender roles, the men would not have the eye contact with you, but the women was a completely different story. And you don't know what the reason was for that. But the men, I did notice it. And actually, I had some of the men in the other training classes, and the entire time, their head was down. But I knew that they were paying attention because they were taking so many notes. And when I went onto their property, it was absolutely a different experience between the men and the women. And I'm not sure why that is. I never looked it up. I do know that American tribes, it's the same. They'll avoid eye contact. Let's do the last one. This was part of the spiel for cultural awareness. And I think it was Teresa who was going to steal my thunder, who said burping at the end of the meal. And what country was this?
That was China.
In China. China and India are both places where I found in my research where burping at the end of the meal shows your appreciation for the meal. And I'm so glad that I found that, because when I was a kid, my mom would get so mad at me for burping at the end of the meal. Roxy, what are you doing? That's just bad manners. And I was just being a snot-nosed kid and say, it's not bad manners, it's showing appreciation for the food. So without even knowing it, I was right. So I always like to find out little nuggets like that. So it made me happy to see that in China and India it is perfectly okay.
It's not okay here.
Not okay here. You'll get some fun.
Not okay here.
That's only because Mr. George Washington wrote his etiquette book, and that was in there. No burping, no blowing your nose, and then there was one other. I think it's letting your fly. You're
When I'm in a restaurant and I catch a person blowing his or her nose, I'm ready to move to another table.
There you go.
Yeah, that's just disgusting.
Well, that brings us to the conclusion for our cultural awareness. We learned about the miscommunication, what causes us to have that when it comes to different, whether it's language barrier or it's a stereotype or different reasons on why we're miscommunicating, why we want to have the awareness, what are the benefits of it, such as building your listening skills and your interpersonal skills. We also did some different exercises. I would encourage you to have that challenge with somebody, have a conversation with them, and every seventh word, throw in a color and a different color so you see how it feels trying to speak in a different way. And with that, I will leave it. Does anybody have any last questions, comments, or concerns? I know that this was very brief and it was very high level. I did not go into all the different aspects because, as you know, this is a huge topic, and this was more based on the things that I've seen as I've gone across the world, some of the interesting things that I pointed or found interesting as I researched. But is there anything else that you all would like to see in the future? I don't know where the potential of having like a part 2 of cultural awareness. So questions, comments, or concerns in general?
I have a question. If when we're looking at cultural awareness, what would you say, like on the local Toastmasters in our meetings, what is it that we might just kind of need to be attuned to when I'm in the Sugarland Club, and we have a very diverse group. So is there anything that you would just kind of recommend that we are just kind of mindful of?
I would love to get, I have some comments. I always have comments, but I would like to ask the group, is there any thoughts from your own club any feedback from Melba on how your own club treats the diversity or things to keep mindful? Teresa.
So something we did early on when we started doing our open houses, one of the things I wanted to make sure that we had in our trifold was, of course, Martin Luther King Jr. right in the middle, and tried to include people like Mahatma Gandhi, or I forget who the Indian gentleman was. So I wanted to show a diverse group, because we've got a very, very, very diverse group where I work as well. So I wanted to show representations from all areas of cultures. that was just the open house. And so we haven't really delved into it in any other direct manner. I think that's a really good question, Miss Barbara. Or Miss Melba.
Charla, I think you were going to add some feedback.
Oh, yes. I've had a wonderful time, so thank you. I was going to say, sometimes when we don't necessarily clap, we may like shake our hands, or sometimes we may even do a thumbs up. Well, in some cultures, especially if you're going there by Zoom, thumbs up is not necessarily a good sign. So you want to be cautious in regards to, when you do go abroad or so and you do different hand gestures, because some hand gestures aren't necessarily seen as the positive way that we see it here. And like the other speaker was just speaking about, I love that Toastmasters is international, and that integrity and respect that, the clubs that we visit and we go to, they purposely, and I mean purposely, try to be respectful of all people and inclusiveness. I love that. So I wish the world was more like Toastmasters. Yay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, when we talk about cultures, I would say there's lots of, not only is there's cultures, within different regions, but there's subcultures, right? Because, for example, when I think of diversity, not only do I think about all the different countries, I also think about age. I also think about male versus female. I think about all those different things, and how do we highlight those? So I know in Tammy and I's club with Heights, we have a variety of ages in there. And I know I try to point out that, at my age, or as a 40-year-old, not that I'm calling attention to it, but just to show that we do have different levels of perspectives in there. And to me, that's one of the highlights is learning from the other generations and getting those perspectives. Becky, I see that you're off mute. Did you have a comment as well?
No, I must
just listening. You're good. I just wanted to check.
The other thing that I would ask, just kind of thinking about when we're doing evaluations, speech evaluations, when you have a speaker whose language is not, that the English is not their first language. For an example, the SH and CHs could be mispronounced. Well, I wouldn't say mispronounced, but some are used in some languages and some are not. So I guess I'm just looking at how do we take what we talked about here today and take it to our local meetings, and especially when we're talking about evaluating somebody's speech. They've given a great speech, but then there are just some language differences, or pronunciation differences, if you will.
I think personally, if I was getting on the receiving end of that evaluation, that is absolutely that I want to hear that I'm doing. Because if I'm trying to practice my English, I need to know if I'm missaying it or not pronouncing it right. So I would absolutely share what they're doing, but also give an example of it. Right. And of course, we're always encouraging. You did really well at this. What I noticed is this word was pronounced this way. Typically it's pronounced this way, and more practice will help with that, those type of things. But in general, I think that most people, they want to hear what they're doing that's not typical to the area, so that they can learn how to improve those skills. Would anybody else have something else to add on that? Yes,
go ahead.
Okay, I had to evaluate a person who was from another country, who was recently from another country. And he decided, well, he didn't decide, but he was speaking very fast. So in my evaluation, I said, slow down. And that was one thing. I said it in a nice way, and he understood. And if they don't speak too fast, I think they would do a better job most of the time. And as someone said, experience will help. As this person does it more, I think that would help.
I think a lot of times in those situations when they're speaking too fast, it's because they want to get it out before they forget.
Right.
Because I know I do that because I have so much that I'm thinking about, and that's why I'm here, to slow down my speech and relax. Teresa, what were your thoughts?
So there's a couple situations. I've got a couple gentlemen that have a very thick accent, and so if I end up having to evaluate either of these guys, I would want to sit as closely as possible. It has opened up my hearing, made me more aware of trying to listen better, and I tend to lean in, and in those cases, hopefully I can get close to the front where they're speaking. And one of the gentlemen happened to be his mentor in the beginning, and he did his icebreaker in front of me just to do a practice. And I did notice the same thing with the talking fast, and asked him the same thing. You might want to slow it down a bit and just breathe and take your time. So that was very good comments Miss Barbara said as well about the slowing down.
Pinky, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, for everybody, especially Melba, who had brought it up regarding Toastmasters International. One of the things that we did a while back, and I'd like to probably integrate again, is to have an international culture. Well, at that time when we were meeting in person, we had an international culture potluck. So everybody actually dressed from where they came from. So we had people from India, and they were in their attire from India and from Mexico and from all the different countries, dressed in their original native garments. And they brought their traditional food. And then for table topics, we did a little bit they talked about their country, the norms and the culture. So that way we got to learn a little bit about them. So that's one thing that I think could help everybody in your clubs, is to have an maybe international table topics on Zoom at this point, or convert it somehow now that you're on Zoom versus in person. That would open it up. And the other one is for people who are integrating into our country. It is appropriate, Barbara Walker, for you to give your opinion as, hey, you're talking too fast, because maybe in our country, in America, and if they're coming and integrating into America, then they need to know how Americans function. And so that's perfectly appropriate, Teresa and Barbara, for what you did, in your opinion. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Pinky. I think that you leave us in a fabulous spot with a suggestion for an international table topics and potluck. I think that's fabulous in how you bring in the awareness, but also celebrating the different cultures and getting to know the different people in your club. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Joe. Joe, any closing comments?
Thank you, Roxanne, for your service to District 56. We all learned a lot. It was very informative to me. If you all could just give Roxanne 3 minutes of your time and fill out our survey to let us know how we're doing, what you thought, we would really appreciate it. Like all good Toastmasters, we'd like your feedback. Thank you all once again for attending. You do not need to stay in the link in the meeting to click on the link to complete the survey. Thank you again, Roxanne. Great job.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you spending the evening with me.
Thank you, Joe, for putting this on. Thank you, Roxanne, for doing this. This was really lovely.
Thank you. Love to see everybody on Zoom.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Roxanne. Pinky, you look beautiful. Love the pink behind you.
Thank you.
I second that. It's adorable. And I really like how Joe has her blue on blue. It's just,
yeah.
I really like the themes. I think it's all fun.
Y'all definitely made a great training event. Thank you for your participation. It helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Barbara. Bye, everyone.
Bye. You said click on the link and you can do the survey. Where?
It's in the chat.
I'm sending chat. Okay. I'm looking.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I don't see it there.
Barbara, if you go down to the bottom of the screen,
Okay, I see it. I see it.
there
Okay.
you go.
Mine had closed up, and that's why I didn't see it. Okay, I see it.
Well, thank you so much for attending, Barbara.
You're welcome. I had to work with my computer for a while to get my picture to come up. So
Well, you
it's in
did
the
great.
chat. All I have to do is pull it up from the chat, right?
Yes, and there's a link in chat.
Okay, I'm looking.
Let me send it again. It should be the very last one.
Well, I see chat, but I don't see the link.
There you go. You see it now?
It's in chat, right?
Yes.
Still looking.
There's a hyperlink.
I'm still looking.
Sometimes it's at the bottom of your screen, the chat, and sometimes it's to the right of your screen.
Well, I've already clicked on chat.
Oh, you clicked on it, it doesn't say it, or it doesn't show it.
I tell you what, Barbara, how about if I just send it to you via email?
Okay, hold on. Okay, I see it. Ooh, it just needs to come up.
You had some extra help there. I saw that.
You weren't supposed to see that.
It's okay. It's okay.
Because I couldn't get it to come out. I couldn't get my picture. I had to log off and log back on. Now I'm clicking on the link. I guess it's gonna come up. You see it then? It didn't come. Okay.
Barbara, I'll be happy to send it to you via email.
Okay, this is elective evaluation. I see that. Next, I'm doing it.
Oh, okay. You're good then.
I think now, come on, I'm thinking. Okay.
All right. You don't have to.
My session is, the name of the session is cultural awareness. All right?
Correct.
All right, Jeff, I'm out of here. Thank you, Roxanne. It's a wonderful, session. So I just wanted to see how it is, but I think it turned out to be really, really, really well. And I being from India, I know some of those things what you're talking about. So I can relate to those things what you said. That's why I don't want it to get in and say my points. I just wanted to see how others react on that. So that's really nice, And one thing I want to let you know why the other language people talk fast, because those languages are fast.
Absolutely.
Really, really fast. Even I have the same thing when I first joined Toastmasters, talk a little slower, but no, I'm not used to it. Just like going really, really fast. And when you do that with the accent and everything, 50% of the stuff just goes out of it, And yeah, so that's a very good point. You brought it up. Yes.
In Scotland, gosh, I really had to focus and listen because the pace was so fast that I wasn't used to it. And the same thing in the office, because the IT team that I work with on development, a lot of them are from India and some of them are from Thailand. And I seriously have to have full attention on what's going on because the pace can be super fast. I agree. Learning experiences for sure.
I think even Spanish is really fast, right? I mean, when they talk like zoop,
When they're speaking Spanish, typically though, even when they're speaking English, their English is very slow. It depends. I would say it depends which country. So, for example, Mexico Spanish is slow versus Venezuelan Spanish is fast. My sister-in-law is Venezuelan, and wow, it's a whirlwind. Versus Mexico Spanish, nice, easy pace. You can understand. You can go with the flow.
Roxanne, we really do appreciate you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Roxanne.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate y'all.
Bye, Chandra.
Bye,
this
Jill.
particular one, are we doing this one again, or is it team building was the next one?
Team building's the next one.
Okay, I need to do a dry run for that one. I haven't put all the content together yet.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close out the meeting.
Okay, bye. Have a good evening.
Good
Thank
night,
you
everyone.
again.
Good night.